Billionaire held divorce papers tight until his newborn son cried and made him choose love. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from, and once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Oh, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. The rain drummed against the hospital window like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Amelia Carter shifted in the narrow bed, her body still trembling from 12 hours of labor that had left her feeling hollowed out and rebuilt all at once. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional white that made reality feel both too sharp and somehow distant. Oliver, she'd chosen the name months ago, whispered it to her belly in the quiet moments, lay swaddled in the plastic bassinet beside her. His tiny chest rose and fell with the determined rhythm of someone who just fought his way into the world. She reached out, her fingers still shaking slightly, and touched his impossibly small hand. He gripped her finger with unexpected strength. "Just you and me, baby boy," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We're going to be okay." The nurse had left 20 minutes ago, promising to return with fresh ice chips and the discharge papers. The room felt cavernous in her absence. Amelia could hear the muffled sounds of other families in neighboring rooms. A grandmother's delighted coo, a father's nervous laughter, the general symphony of new beginnings that somehow made her solitude echo louder. Her phone sat on the rolling table, silent. She'd turned off the notifications hours ago, unable to bear the cascade of congratulations from friends and colleagues who couldn't know, that she'd walked through this entire journey alone. Well, not entirely alone. Her sister Jenna had been there until an hour ago, staying through the worst of it, holding her hand when the contractions peaked, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. But Jenna had 3 kids of her own waiting at home, a husband who worked night shifts, and that particular brand of exhaustion that came from spreading yourself too thin. "Go," Amelia had insisted, forcing brightness into her voice. "We're fine." Really, the lie had tasted bitter, but necessary. 8 months. It had been 8 months since she'd walked out of the penthouse apartment she'd shared with Liam, her overnight bag weighing less than the decision itself. She could still remember the sound of her heels against the marble floor, each step an act of will. He'd been in his home office, always in his home office, the blue glow of multiple monitors illuminating his face as he studied market projections or acquisition reports or whatever numbered reality demanded his attention that particular evening. She hadn't told him she was leaving, not in words, but the packed bag had been message enough. He hadn't followed. She'd waited in the elevator, her hand protective over her still flat stomach, willing him to chase her, to say something, anything that would prove she mattered more than his empire. The elevator descended all 42 floors in silence. That was the last time she'd seen him in person. Now, staring at Oliver's perfect wrinkled face, Amelia felt the familiar twist of anger and grief that had become her constant companion. Liam knew. She'd told him about the pregnancy the week before she left, her hands trembling as she held the positive test. His response had been measured, controlled, a slight nod, a murmured, "Okay," and then a glance back at his laptop screen where some crisis demanded immediate attention. No joy, no fear, no reaction at all beyond acknowledgement. She'd carried their son for 9 months, felt every kick and hiccup, navigated morning sickness while preparing court briefs, attended every ultrasound appointment alone, assembled the crib by herself in her modest 1-bedroom apartment in Queens, so different from the luxury they'd shared. And Liam had let her. Oliver stirred, making a small sound that was almost a protest. Amelia lifted him carefully, her body protesting the movement, and brought him to her chest. His warmth seeped through the thin hospital gown, and for a moment the anger receded, replaced by something fiercer, more elemental. "You're worth everything," she told him, her lips against the soft crown of his head. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, The door opened. Amelia's breath caught. She knew, even before she looked up, even before she saw the familiar silhouette in the doorway, some part of her, the part that had loved him completely, desperately, recognized his presence like a change in atmospheric pressure. Liam Huxley stood in the entrance, rain still dampening his expensive coat, his dark hair slightly disheveled. In his right hand he held a manila envelope. Not flowers, not a teddy bear, not even a card. Papers. Their eyes met across the small room, and Amelia felt every carefully constructed wall she'd built threaten to crumble. But she held firm, lifting her chin slightly, her arms tightening protectively around Oliver. "You came," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. Liam's jaw worked, as if he was trying to form words that refused to come. His gaze moved from her face to the bundle in her arms, and something flickered in his expression, something she couldn't quite name. He started, then stopped. His knuckles whitened around the envelope. "I brought the divorce papers." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and final. Amelia nodded slowly, feeling the full weight of this moment. The ending she'd known was coming, delivered in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and new beginnings. "Of course you did," she said quietly. And in that moment, as if sensing the tension, as if understanding in some primal way that his world was about to shift again, Oliver began to cry. What would you have done if you were in Amelia's position? Would you have let him stay or asked him to leave? Oliver's cry cut through the tension like a knife through silk. Sharp, insistent, and impossible to ignore. Amelia's body responded instinctively, her hand already moving to soothe him, but her eyes never left Liam's face. She watched as something shifted in his expression, a crack appearing in that carefully maintained mask of control. He took a step forward, then stopped. The manila envelope crinkled in his grip. "Can I?" His voice came out rough, uncertain in a way she'd never heard before. "Can I see him?" Amelia's first instinct was to refuse, to tell him he'd forfeited that right 8 months ago when he'd let her walk away, when he'd chosen spreadsheets over sonograms, board meetings over doctor's appointments, his empire over their family. The words formed on her tongue, bitter and justified, but Oliver was still crying. And despite everything, despite the anger that lived in her bones now, she found herself nodding. "Wash your hands first," she said quietly, gesturing toward the small sink in the corner. "There's sanitizer on the wall." Liam moved mechanically, setting the envelope down on the visitor's chair with a care that seemed almost reverent. She heard the water running, the mechanical dispenser of soap, the rustle of paper towels. When he turned back, his hands were clasped together, and she realized with a jolt that he was nervous. Good, she thought with a flash of bitter satisfaction. He should be. He approached slowly, as if she might change her mind at any moment. When he reached the bedside, he stood there, tall and uncertain, his eyes fixed on the squirming bundle in her arms. Oliver had quieted to soft whimpers, his tiny face scrunched up with the effort of adjusting to this strange new world. "He has your nose," Liam said softly, and Amelia felt something twist painfully in her chest. "He has your eyes," she replied, because it was true. Even in the hospital's harsh lighting, she could see the distinctive gray-green that she'd once loved getting lost in. Or he will, probably. The nurse said they might change. An awkward silence stretched between them, filled only by Oliver's intermittent sounds. Amelia shifted slightly, every muscle in her body protesting, and Liam's hand twitched as if he wanted to help but didn't dare. "How long was the labor?" he asked finally. 12 hours. She kept her voice neutral, factual. Started around midnight. He was born at 11:47 this morning. She didn't tell him about the panic when her water broke in the middle of the night, how she'd fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, calling Jenna instead of him. Didn't mention the loneliness of laboring through the dark hours, or how she'd gripped the hospital bed rails and wished, despite everything, that he was there to hold her hand. Were there any complications? His corporate voice had crept back in, analytical, gathering data, as if this were a quarterly report instead of the birth of his son. "He's healthy. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 20 inches long." Amelia paused, then added with deliberate emphasis, "We're both fine. We managed." The jab landed. She saw him flinch, saw his jaw tighten, but he didn't defend himself, didn't offer excuses or explanations. The silence stretched again, and this time it felt heavy with everything they weren't saying. Oliver yawned, a tiny, perfect gesture that seemed impossibly human for someone so brand new to the world. Liam's expression softened watching him, and Amelia felt her resolve waver dangerously. "Why did you come, Liam?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Why now? You had 8 months. 8 months to—" She cut herself off, shaking her head. "Never mind. I already know. You came to end things officially, to tie up loose ends like you're closing a business deal. That's not—" He stopped, exhaled sharply. "I came because I needed to see you, both of you. To see us or to see what you're walking away from." The words came out sharper than she intended, edged with months of accumulated hurt. Liam ran his hand through his hair. a gesture she recognized from late nights when deals went wrong or markets shifted unexpectedly. "I don't know," he admitted, and the honesty of it caught her off guard. "I don't know what I'm doing here, Amelia. When I got the notification, when I saw that he was born, I couldn't stay away." "A notification," she repeated, the word tasting like ash. Not a call, not a message asking if we were okay. A notification. From what, the hospital system? The birth certificate filing? He had the grace to look ashamed. "Your sister sent me a text. It's a boy. Oliver. Both healthy. That's all." Jenna, of course. Her sister, who still believed in second chances and grand gestures, who'd argued countless times that Liam just needed time to process, to understand what he was losing. Amelia made a mental note to have words with her later. "And that was enough to bring you here?" She couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. After 8 months of silence. "I never wanted silence," Liam said, his voice dropping lower. "I just didn't know how to break it. Every day that passed made it harder. Every week, every month, I kept thinking I should reach out, should say something, but what?" she challenged. "But your pride got in the way? But admitting you were wrong was too difficult for the great Liam Huxley?" "But I was terrified," he said simply, and the confession hung between them like a physical thing. Oliver stirred again, making a small mewing sound. Without thinking, Amelia began the gentle rocking motion that already felt instinctive, even after just a few hours of motherhood. She watched Liam watch her, saw something like longing flicker across his features. "Terrified of what?" she asked, softer now despite herself. "Of this. Of failing at it. Of being to him what my father was to me. Absent even when present. Cold, distant." He looked away, staring at the rain-streaked window. "I grew up thinking love was weakness, that caring too much meant losing focus, losing control, losing everything that mattered. And then you came along, and you made me feel things I didn't know how to handle. So you shut down," Amelia finished. "You pushed me away because feeling something was scarier than feeling nothing." Yes, the admission cost him something. She could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the rigid set of his shoulders. "And by the time I realized what I was doing, what I was losing, you were already gone. And I convinced myself that you were better off, that he would be better off without me ruining everything." "That wasn't your choice to make," Amelia said, and felt the sting of tears she'd been holding back. "You don't get to decide what's better for us. You don't get to abandon your family and call it noble." Liam's hands clenched at his sides. "I know. God, Amelia, I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm here now, and I'm asking," he swallowed hard, "I'm asking for a chance. Not to fix us, not to go back to what we were. Just a chance to be his father, to try to be the man you both deserve." Amelia looked down at Oliver, at his peaceful face finally relaxed in sleep. She thought about all the nights ahead, the feedings and changings and endless exhaustion. She thought about birthday parties and first days of school, scraped knees and science projects. She thought about doing it all alone, which she'd already resigned herself to. And she thought about what it might mean to let Liam try, really try to be part of Oliver's life. "Words are easy, Liam," she said finally, meeting his eyes. "You've always been good with words when they serve your purpose, but I need more than that. Oliver needs more than that." "I know," he said again. "Tell me what you need. Tell me how to prove it." She was about to answer when the door opened again, and a different nurse, older with kind eyes and graying hair, bustled in carrying a clipboard and a plastic bag. "Sorry to interrupt, sweetheart," she said to Amelia, barely glancing at Liam. "Just need to do Oliver's final check before we start the discharge process. Visiting hours are almost over anyway." She turned to Liam with a professional smile. "You'll need to head out soon, sir. Mom and baby need their rest." Liam looked at Amelia, and in his eyes she saw a question, maybe even a plea, but she turned away, focusing on the nurse, on Oliver, on anything but the man who'd broken her heart, and now stood there looking like his world was breaking too. "I'll go," Liam said quietly. He picked up the manila envelope, held it for a moment as if weighing its contents, then set it down on the bedside table. "The papers are there if that's what you want." "But Amelia," she forced herself to look at him. "I'm not signing them," he said. "Not yet. Not until you tell me there's absolutely no chance. For Oliver's sake, if not for mine." He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "I'll be back tomorrow, if you'll let me." And then he was gone, leaving Amelia alone with their son and a manila envelope full of endings that suddenly felt less certain than they had an hour ago. The apartment felt smaller than Amelia remembered. Or maybe it was just that everything felt different now, filtered through the exhaustion that had settled into her bones like a permanent resident. She stood in the doorway, Oliver's carrier in one hand and her discharge bag in the other, and tried to remember how she'd imagined this moment. In her fantasies, the ones she'd indulged in during quiet moments of pregnancy, coming home had involved soft lighting and gentle music, maybe lavender in the air, a sense of peace and readiness. Instead, she was greeted by the reality of dishes still in the sink from 2 days ago, a pile of unfolded laundry on the couch, and the faint smell of the Thai takeout she'd eaten the night her water broke. "Home, sweet home," she muttered to Oliver, who was mercifully still asleep. The taxi ride from the hospital had cost $43 she couldn't really afford, but Jenna's minivan had a broken car seat anchor, and taking the subway with a newborn had seemed impossible. She set the carrier down carefully on the coffee table, then immediately second-guessed the location. Was the coffee table safe? Should he be on the floor? What if she tripped? The sudden weight of responsibility crashed over her. This tiny human was entirely dependent on her now. There was no nurse call button, no hospital staff, no safety net. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Jenna, probably, checking in. She pulled it out and froze. "Liam, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to make sure you got home safely." Her thumb hovered over the screen. She should ignore it, should maintain the boundaries she'd spent 8 months building. But exhaustion and hormones made her vulnerable, and before she could stop herself, she typed back, "We're fine." The 3 dots appeared immediately, showing he was typing. Then they disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Can I do anything? Send groceries? Hire someone to help?" Amelia's jaw tightened. Of course. Money. That was always his solution. Throw cash at a problem until it went away, or at least became someone else's responsibility. "We don't need your money," she typed back, then added, "We don't need anything from you." She turned off her phone before she could see his response. Oliver stirred. Making the small grunting sounds she was already learning meant he'd wake soon. Her breasts ached with the fullness of milk coming in, and the discharge nurse's warnings about engorgement and proper latching echoed in her head. She lifted him carefully from the carrier, still marveling at how light he felt, how fragile. The nursery, really just a corner of her bedroom with a second-hand crib and a changing table she'd assembled herself, waited. She'd spent weeks making it perfect, painting the walls a soft sage green, hanging white curtains she'd found on sale at Target, arranging the few stuffed animals and books friends had given her at the small shower Jenna had organized. She changed his diaper with trembling hands, remembering the nurse's instructions. Terrified she'd do something wrong, Oliver began to fuss, his cries building from whimpers to full-throated wails that seemed impossibly loud in the small apartment. Okay, she soothed, lifting him to her chest. "I've got you. We'll figure this out together." Feeding was awkward and painful at first, nothing like the peaceful images in the parenting books. Oliver latched wrong twice, making her wince, before finally settling into a rhythm. She sank into the rocking chair, another garage sale find she'd lovingly refinished, and let herself breathe. This was it. This was her life now. Just the two of them against the world. Her mind drifted unbidden to the penthouse. The nursery Liam had briefly discussed before she left. Talk of hiring an interior designer, of importing a custom crib from Italy, of sparing no expense. He'd approached impending fatherhood like a project, a problem to be solved with enough money and planning. He hadn't understood that what she needed wasn't expensive furniture or designer onesies. She'd needed him to be excited, to be scared, to be present in any genuine way. Instead, he'd offered her a platinum credit card and suggested she handle the details while he handled a merger in Singapore. Oliver finished feeding and she burped him carefully, feeling a small surge of pride when he actually burped. Small victories. She'd take them where she could get them. The exhaustion was creeping in now, making her movements slow and deliberate. She should sleep when he sleeps. Everyone said that, but the apartment felt wrong somehow, too quiet and too loud at once. She found herself checking the locks on the door twice, peering out the window at the street below. At 2 a.m., when Oliver woke screaming for the 3rd time, Amelia sat in the dark and cried with him, not from frustration, though there was that too, but from the sheer overwhelming enormity of it all. Every decision felt massive. Every choice weighted with consequence. What if she couldn't do this alone? What if she wasn't enough? The thought of Liam crept in like smoke under a door. He'd said he'd come back tomorrow. Today, technically, since it was already well past midnight. Would he actually show up? Or would he retreat back into his world of board meetings and profit margins, leaving her and Oliver as loose ends in his meticulously organized life? Part of her hoped he'd stay away. It would be easier, cleaner. She could build her life without the complication of his presence, without the constant reminder of what they'd lost. But another part, the part she tried to ignore, remembered the look on his face when he'd held Oliver. Not calculation or duty, but something raw and uncertain, something almost like hope. She dozed fitfully in the rocking chair, Oliver against her chest, too tired to move to the bed. When dawn light started filtering through the curtains, she jerked awake, momentarily panicked before feeling Oliver's steady breathing against her. Her phone sat on the dresser where she'd left it, powered off. She should turn it back on, check in with Jenna, let her know they'd survived the night. But she couldn't quite make herself move yet. Instead, she sat there watching the sunrise paint the walls of her small apartment, feeling Oliver's weight in her arms, and tried to convince herself that this was enough, that they didn't need anyone else. The knock on the door came at 8:30. Amelia had just finished feeding Oliver again and was attempting to navigate the coffee maker one-handed when she heard it. 3 firm raps, then silence. She knew, even before she checked the peephole, who it would be. Liam stood in the hallway, and for a moment she just stared at him through the distorted fisheye lens. He looked different in the harsh fluorescent light of her building's corridor, less like a billionaire titan, and more like a man who hadn't slept. He was holding a cardboard carrier with 2 coffee cups and a white paper bag that smelled of fresh bagels. She shouldn't open the door. She should tell him to leave, to give her space, to respect the boundaries she'd tried to establish. But she was so tired, and the coffee smelled so good. Her hand moved to the deadbolt before she could overthink it. Liam's eyes widened slightly when the door opened, as if he hadn't actually expected her to let him in. They stood there for a moment, separated by the threshold, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between them. "I brought breakfast," he said finally, lifting the bag slightly. "And coffee. Decaf. I wasn't sure if you could have caffeine while—" He gestured vaguely at Oliver, asleep in the Moses basket she'd set on the couch. "I can have some caffeine," Amelia said quietly. "Just not too much." She stepped back, opening the door wider. An invitation, or maybe just surrender to exhaustion. Liam entered carefully as if he were walking into a stranger's home rather than the apartment he'd helped her move into 8 months ago. His eyes swept the space, taking in the dishes, the laundry, the general chaos of new motherhood. "You didn't have to come," Amelia said, closing the door. She kept her voice neutral, guarded. "I know." He set the coffee and bagels on the small kitchen counter. "But I wanted to. I need to." He paused, seeming to search for words. "How was the night?" "Long." She didn't elaborate, didn't tell him about the crying, or the fear, or the overwhelming loneliness. "We survived." "You shouldn't have to just survive, Amelia." His voice carried something that might have been guilt or maybe regret. "You should have help. Support. I have support. I have Jenna, and my colleagues have been amazing, but not me." He said it flatly, a statement of fact rather than a question. "No," she agreed. "Not you." The silence stretched between them again, filled with all the history they carried. Amelia moved to the coffee, desperate for something to do with her hands. The first sip was perfect, exactly how she liked it, with just the right amount of cream. He'd remembered. That small detail hurt almost more than the big betrayals. "I want to be here," Liam said suddenly. "Not just today. Every day. I want to help. I want to learn how to—" He gestured helplessly toward Oliver. "I don't know how to be a father, Amelia. I never had a good example. But I want to try. Trying isn't enough," she said, but her voice lacked the conviction she wanted it to have. "Oliver needs more than effort. He needs consistency, presence, someone who won't disappear when things get hard or inconvenient. I know, and I understand if you don't believe me, if you think I'll bail the moment my phone rings with some crisis at work." He took a step closer, careful not to invade her space. "But I'm asking you to let me prove it. Give me a chance to show up, to be the father he deserves and the partner you needed." "Partner?" The word came out sharp. "We're not partners, Liam. We haven't been for a long time. Maybe we never really were. Then let me be his father. Just that. Nothing more. His eyes were earnest, almost desperate. Please. Amelia looked at Oliver, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the negotiation happening around him. She thought about all the moments ahead. First smiles, first words, first steps. Did she have the right to deny him a father who wanted to be present, even if she doubted his ability to follow through? One chance, she heard herself say. You get one chance, Liam. You disappoint him, you disappear again, and that's it. I won't let you break his heart the way you broke mine. Something flickered across Liam's face. Pain, maybe, or recognition. I won't disappoint him, he said quietly. I can't promise I'll be perfect or that I won't make mistakes, but I promise I'll show up. Every single day. We'll see, Amelia said. But even as the words left her mouth, she felt something shift inside her. A door opening just a crack, letting in the possibility of something she'd thought was lost forever. The diaper hung at an odd angle, one tab barely holding while the other was stuck to itself instead of the plastic backing. Liam stood frozen over the changing table, his hands hovering uncertainly above Oliver, who had chosen this particular moment to discover the joy of kicking his legs with surprising force. He won't stop moving, Liam said, frustration creeping into his carefully controlled voice. Amelia watched from the doorway, arms crossed, fighting the urge to step in and do it herself. It would be faster, easier, but this was part of the deal. If Liam wanted to be present, he needed to learn the messy, unglamorous parts of fatherhood. Babies move, she said simply. You have to be quick and gentle at the same time. That's contradictory. Welcome to parenting. It was day 3 of Liam's presence in their lives. 3 days of him showing up at 8:30 every morning, bringing coffee and bagels or sometimes muffins from the bakery on the corner. 3 days of awkward silences punctuated by Oliver's cries and the mundane discussions of feeding schedules and diaper counts. He'd been staying until evening, leaving only when Amelia's exhaustion became too visible to ignore, when even his presence couldn't mask the fact that she needed to sleep while Oliver slept. He'd offered to stay overnight, to help with the night feedings, but she'd refused. Some boundaries needed to remain, even if they were becoming increasingly blurry. Liam finally managed to secure the diaper, though it sat slightly crooked on Oliver's tiny body. He stepped back, looking at his handiwork with the same intensity he probably applied to multi-million-dollar contracts. It'll hold, Amelia conceded. For now. A small victory. She saw the relief flash across his face before he schooled his expression back to neutrality. Oliver began to fuss, his face scrunching up in pre-cry preparation. Without thinking, Liam reached for him, his movement still uncertain but growing more confident with each passing day. He lifted Oliver carefully, supporting his head the way the YouTube videos had shown him. Amelia had caught him watching parenting tutorials late one night when she'd woken for a feeding. Hey, buddy, Liam murmured, swaying slightly. You're okay. We've got you. The "we" hung in the air. Amelia felt its weight but didn't correct him. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, a reminder about her 6-week follow-up appointment with her OB. 6 weeks felt impossibly far away when every day stretched into an eternity of feeding and changing and soothing. But it also felt too soon, time moving in that strange elastic way that new parenthood created. I need to make some calls, Liam said, still holding Oliver. For work. Do you mind if I... Go ahead. Amelia gestured toward the living room. Just keep your voice down. She watched him settle onto her second-hand couch, Oliver cradled in one arm while he pulled out his phone with his free hand. The sight was jarring. Liam Huxley, Billionaire CEO, sitting in her modest apartment with spit up on his shirt that he hadn't noticed yet, conducting business in hushed tones while supporting a newborn's head. This wasn't the Liam she'd married. That man had been all sharp suits and sharper focus, every moment calibrated for maximum efficiency. This version seemed softer somehow, more uncertain, more human. She didn't know if she could trust it. Amelia moved to the kitchen, starting the familiar routine of washing bottles and pump parts. The monotony of it was almost meditative. Warm water, soap, rinse, repeat. Through the wall, she could hear Liam's muffled voice. Reschedule it. No, I don't care what they say. Family emergency. Yes, still. No, I don't know when I'll be back in the office. Family emergency. 3 weeks ago, she and Oliver had been his abandonment. Now they were his emergency, his excuse, his reason to shirk responsibility. She didn't know how to feel about that. Amelia? She turned to find Liam standing in the kitchen doorway, Oliver asleep against his shoulder. He'd gotten better at the swaying, at the gentle bounce that seemed to soothe. He's down. Liam said quietly. Should I put him in the bassinet? Yes. But keep him on his back and make sure the blanket is below his shoulders. She followed him to the bedroom, watching as he lowered Oliver with exaggerated care, as if defusing a bomb rather than laying down a sleeping infant. But he did it right, checking twice that Oliver was positioned safely before stepping back. Coffee? She offered, more out of habit than desire for his company. They ended up at her small kitchen table, the same one where she'd eaten countless solo meals during her pregnancy. Liam looked out of place in the space, too tall for the chairs she'd found on Craigslist, too refined for the chipped mugs and mismatched plates. I've been thinking, he started, then paused, about the apartment, the penthouse. It's just sitting there empty. You could… No. The word came out sharp, final. Amelia, just listen. You wouldn't have to see me. I could stay at a hotel, but the space, the resources. Oliver would have his own nursery properly equipped. You wouldn't have to… Have to what? Live like a normal person? She felt the anger rising, hot and familiar. This is my home, Liam. Mine. I built this life without you, and I'm not going to give it up because you suddenly feel guilty. It's not about guilt. Then what is it about? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. I don't know how to do this, he finally said. How to be here without trying to fix everything. It's what I do. I see a problem, I throw money at it until it's solved. But you're not a problem to be solved, and neither is Oliver. I know that. I'm just… He ran his hand through his hair, that familiar gesture of frustration. I'm terrified I'm going to mess this up, that I already have. The honesty disarmed her, as it always did. She wanted to stay angry, to hold onto the protective wall she'd built. But exhaustion, and something softer, something dangerous was eroding her defenses. You want to know how to help? She asked quietly. Stop trying to change everything. Stop trying to control it. Just be here. Be present. Do the dishes. Hold your son. Learn what his different cries mean. That's it. That's all I need from you. That's all? He looked skeptical, as if the simplicity itself was suspicious. It's harder than it sounds, she said. Being present. Really being here, not just physically but mentally, emotionally. Not checking your phone every 5 minutes or thinking about the next meeting or the next deal. I'm trying. I know. And she did know. She could see it in the way he focused on Oliver, in the careful attention he paid to every detail of care. But trying isn't the same as succeeding. And I need you to understand. One mistake, one disappearance, one moment of putting your business before your son, and this ends. I won't give you another chance to hurt us. The weight of her words settled between them. Liam nodded slowly, his expression serious. I understand. Oliver's cry cut through the moment, sharp and insistent. Amelia started to rise, but Liam was faster. I'll get him, he said. You rest. She should argue, should maintain control, but the exhaustion was overwhelming. She let him go, listening to his footsteps, the gentle murmuring as he picked up Oliver, the gradual quieting of the cries. Through the bedroom door she could see him pacing with Oliver, that same gentle bounce whispering words she couldn't quite hear. The tenderness in his posture made something ache in her chest. She'd fallen in love with the idea of this Liam once, the man who would put family first, who would be present and engaged and emotionally available. She'd married him believing that man existed beneath the corporate armor. Then she'd learned the armor was all there was. Now watching him soothe their son, she wondered if she'd been wrong. If maybe, buried deep beneath years of conditioning and fear, there was something real struggling to surface. But wondering was dangerous. Hope was dangerous. She'd survived the last 8 months by not hoping, by accepting reality as it was rather than wishing for what it could be. Letting that hope back in felt like inviting heartbreak to dinner. Liam emerged from the bedroom, Oliver calm against his shoulder. He just needed some movement, he said, still swaying slightly. I think he likes the pacing. He's your son, Amelia said before she could stop herself. Restless, even when resting. Something flickered in Liam's expression. Pleasure, maybe, at being acknowledged as Oliver's father in a way that went beyond biology. There's something else I wanted to talk about, he said carefully. The divorce papers. They're still sitting there unsigned. I need to know. He paused, adjusting Oliver's position. I need to know if you want me to sign them. Amelia's breath caught. She'd been avoiding looking at that manila envelope, had shoved it in a drawer after the first day. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't know, she admitted. I don't know what I want anymore. That's okay. His voice was gentle. You don't have to know right now. I just wanted you to understand that I'm not pressuring you either way. If you want the divorce, I'll sign. If you want to wait, we wait. This isn't about me anymore, it's about what you need, what Oliver needs. The old Liam would have pushed for an answer, would have needed to check this task off his list, to have clarity and resolution. This new version, or maybe just a version she'd never seen before, seemed content to exist in uncertainty. Okay, she said softly. They sat in silence for a while, the afternoon light shifting through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. Oliver dozed on Liam's shoulder, peaceful and unaware of the complicated dance his parents were performing around him. Amelia found herself studying them, father and son, so similar in the shape of their faces, the way they both frowned slightly, even in sleep. Oliver would grow up to look like Liam, probably. Would he inherit his father's emotional walls too? His fear of vulnerability? She made a silent promise to herself. She wouldn't let that happen. Whatever came of her relationship with Liam, she would raise Oliver to be different, to be open, to be present, to understand that love wasn't weakness, but the greatest strength of all. Stay for dinner, she heard herself say. I was going to make pasta. Nothing fancy, but I'd like that, Liam said. And the smile that crossed his face was so genuine, so unguarded, that it nearly broke her. Maybe this was how they moved forward. One small step at a time, one meal shared, one moment of presence. Not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with the quiet accumulation of ordinary days. Or maybe she was fooling herself, mistaking exhaustion for forgiveness, loneliness for love. Time would tell. And for now, that would have to be enough. The grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon should have been quiet. Instead, Oliver had chosen this exact moment, standing in line with a cart full of diapers and formula, to have a complete meltdown. His screams echoed off the fluorescent-lit aisles, each cry seeming to multiply in volume. Amelia bounced him desperately, her arms aching from 2 weeks of constant carrying. The woman behind her in line shifted her weight pointedly, radiating judgment. The cashier, a tired-looking teenager with acne scars, deliberately avoided eye contact. It's okay, baby, we're almost done, Amelia whispered. But Oliver was beyond consolation. His face was red, scrunched tight with fury at the world and all its inconveniences. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Probably Liam, checking in like he did every few hours now. The constant attention should have felt supportive. Instead, it felt suffocating, like he was trying to manage her life from his office downtown. She ignored the call, focusing on paying, on getting out, on just surviving the next 5 minutes. The walk home was torture. Oliver cried the entire 6 blocks, and Amelia felt every stare from passing strangers like physical blows. By the time she reached her building, tears were streaming down her own face, mixing with the light rain that had started to fall. The elevator was broken. Of course it was. She stood at the base of the stairs looking up at the 4 flights to her apartment, grocery bags cutting into her palms, Oliver wailing against her chest, and felt something inside her simply give up. She sank onto the bottom step, groceries abandoned beside her, and let herself cry with her son. That's where Liam found her 20 minutes later. Amelia? His voice cut through the fog of exhaustion and despair. What happened? Are you hurt? She looked up at him through blurry eyes. He was in a suit. Must have come straight from a meeting. His expensive shoes completely inappropriate for carrying groceries up 4 flights of stairs. But he was already reaching for the bags, his face creased with concern. I'm fine, she managed, though clearly she wasn't. The elevator's out. I can see that. He shifted the bags to one arm, then offered her his free hand. Come on, let's get you upstairs. She wanted to refuse, to prove she could do this alone. But Oliver was still crying, and she was so tired. She took his hand. The climb was excruciating. Liam carried all the groceries, while Amelia focused on keeping Oliver calm and putting one foot in front of the other. By the time they reached her apartment, she was shaking. Inside, Liam immediately began unpacking groceries while she tried to nurse Oliver, but he wouldn't latch properly, pulling away and crying harder, and Amelia felt the familiar spiral of inadequacy pulling her down. What's wrong with him? She asked, hearing the edge of panic in her voice. Why won't he eat? Maybe he's not hungry, Liam suggested, setting a gallon of milk in the refrigerator. He has to be hungry. It's been 3 hours. The schedule says, Amelia. Liam's voice was gentle but firm. Look at me. She did, reluctantly. When's the last time you ate something? Or slept more than 2 hours? I don't know. This morning, maybe? Yesterday? The days blurred together. An endless cycle of feeding and changing and trying to keep everything under control. Liam crossed the small kitchen in 2 strides, carefully taking Oliver from her arms. Go take a shower, a long one, I've got him. But he needs his mother to not collapse from exhaustion. His tone left no room for argument. Please, Amelia, let me help. She was too tired to fight. In the bathroom, she turned the shower as hot as she could stand and let the water wash away 2 weeks of accumulated stress. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done something just for herself, something that wasn't about Oliver's needs or schedules or routines. When she emerged 30 minutes later, wrapped in her bathrobe with her hair dripping, she found Liam on the couch with Oliver asleep on his chest. The apartment was transformed. Dishes washed, laundry folded, groceries put away. The chaos she'd been drowning in had been quietly managed while she was gone. You didn't have to do all this, she said softly. I wanted to. He looked up at her, his expression serious. Amelia, you can't keep doing this alone. You're going to burn out. I'm fine. You're not fine. You had a panic attack on the stairs of your building. I wasn't. She stopped because maybe he was right. Maybe what she'd felt in that stairwell went beyond simple exhaustion. I can handle it. Why do you have to handle it alone? The question hung in the air between them. Why won't you let me help more? I could hire a night nurse or move in or… Because this is temporary, she said, the words escaping before she could stop them. This version of you, the attentive father, the supportive partner, it's temporary. Eventually, something at work will demand your attention, some crisis will pull you away, and you'll remember that your real life is out there, not here with us. Liam flinched as if she'd struck him. That's not true, isn't it? Amelia moved to the window, unable to look at him. You've been here for 2 weeks, Liam. 2 weeks of playing house, of pretending this is enough for you. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that parenting isn't a project with a completion date, it's just day after day of the same mundane tasks? This isn't a game to me. His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the hurt beneath it. I'm not pretending. Then where have you been for the past 8 months? The question burst out of her, raw and painful. Where were you when I was throwing up every morning? When I couldn't tie my shoes? When I was terrified and alone and needed you? Oliver stirred at her raised voice, beginning to fuss. Liam immediately shifted, soothing him with practiced movements that would have seemed impossible 2 weeks ago. I was an idiot, he said quietly, once Oliver settled. I was scared and stupid, and I convinced myself you were better off without me. But I'm here now, Amelia. I'm trying. Trying isn't enough. She was crying again, frustrated tears she couldn't control. Don't you understand? Every time you show up, every time you do something right, it just makes it harder. It makes me hope, and I can't afford to hope anymore. Hope hurts too much. The silence that followed was broken only by Oliver's soft breathing and the distant sounds of the city outside. What do you want from me? Liam asked finally. Tell me what you need, and I'll do it. I need you to be honest. Amelia turned to face him, wiping her eyes. Stop making promises you can't keep. Stop acting like this is sustainable. You have a company to run, a life you've built. Eventually, you'll have to go back to it. Then I'll bring Oliver with me. The words came quickly, desperately. Or I'll work from here. You'll what? Give up everything you've worked for? We both know that's not realistic. Liam carefully stood, Oliver still cradled against him. He crossed to where she stood, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his own eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw. I don't know what the future looks like, he admitted. I don't know how to balance everything, but I know I can't go back to how things were. I won't. These past 2 weeks, he paused, adjusting Oliver's position. They've been the hardest and the best of my life. Learning to be his father, trying to earn your trust again. It's terrifying and exhausting and nothing like running a company. Exactly my point. No, listen. He shifted closer. Running a company is about control, about managing variables and minimizing risk. This, us, Oliver, family, it's completely out of my control. I can't predict when he'll cry or what will make you smile or whether I'm doing anything right. And for the first time in my adult life, I don't want to control it. I just want to be here experiencing it even when it's messy and complicated. Words, Liam. They're just words. Then let me prove it with actions. He reached out with his free hand, not quite touching her. Move back to the penthouse. Not for me, for you. You'd have help, space, resources. I'll stay elsewhere if you want. But please, Stop punishing yourself to punish me. Amelia wanted to refuse, wanted to cling to her independence, her small apartment, her proof that she didn't need him. But she was so tired, and the thought of help, of space, of not carrying groceries up 4 flights of stairs while Oliver screamed, was almost unbearably tempting. I'll think about it, she said finally. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Liam seemed to understand that it was all she could offer right now. Okay. He carefully transferred Oliver back to her arms. I should go. Let you rest. But he hesitated at the door, turning back with an expression she couldn't quite read. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I don't see this as temporary. I see it as the beginning of learning how to be the man you both deserve. And I know you don't believe me yet, but I'll keep showing up until you do. Keep showing. After he left, Amelia stood in the quiet apartment, Oliver sleeping peacefully against her chest, and let herself consider the impossible. What if he meant it? What if this time was different? The thought terrified her more than any alternative, because if she let herself believe, if she let him in completely and he still left, she couldn't survive that again. But as she looked down at Oliver's peaceful face, at the future she was trying to build for him, she wondered if she could afford not to take the risk. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Amelia fumbled for her phone in the dark, Oliver's cries already pulling her from the shallow sleep she'd finally managed. But it wasn't Oliver making her phone buzz. He was just building up to one of his middle-of-the-night performances. Liam's name glowed on the screen. She almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail like she had so many calls during their separation. But something made her swipe to accept, even as she lifted Oliver from his bassinet. Hello? Her voice was rough with sleep. I'm sorry, I know it's late. Liam sounded off, his usually controlled tone frayed at the edges. I couldn't sleep and I needed to hear your voice, hear that you're both okay. Amelia settled into the rocking chair, adjusting Oliver to nurse. It's 3 a.m, Liam. I know, I'm sorry, I'll let you go. Wait. She didn't know why she stopped him. Maybe because he sounded as lost as she felt. What's wrong? A long pause. She could hear something in the background. City sounds, maybe. Traffic that never slept. I'm sitting outside your building, he admitted finally. In my car. I've been here for an hour, just, I don't know, making sure you're safe, I guess. You're what? Amelia stood, careful not to disturb Oliver's feeding, and moved to the window. 4 floors down, she could see a familiar sleek sedan parked across the street. Liam, that's crazy. I know. I just left a board meeting that went until midnight, and I was driving home, and I ended up here instead. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. My therapist would have a field day with this. You're seeing a therapist? The surprise in her voice was evident. Started 2 weeks ago, the day after Oliver was born. Another pause. I'm trying to figure out why I'm so terrified of this, of us, of being a father. Amelia sank back into the rocking chair, her throat tight. This vulnerability from Liam was new, unsettling. She didn't know how to respond. What did they say? She asked quietly. That I'm repeating my father's patterns, that I learned love was conditional, based on achievement, on performance, that the idea of unconditional love, of someone needing me emotionally instead of practically, triggers every defense mechanism I've built. Oliver had finished nursing. Amelia shifted him to her shoulder, patting his back gently. Through the phone she could hear Liam breathing, waiting. Why are you telling me this? She asked. At 3 a.m? Because I realized something tonight. In that boardroom full of people who depend on me professionally, I realized that none of it matters. The deals, the acquisitions, the empire I've built. It's all just a way to avoid feeling, to avoid being vulnerable. His voice cracked slightly. And I'm terrified that I've already lost you, that these 2 weeks have just been you tolerating me for Oliver's sake, and that eventually, you'll realize you're better off without me in your lives. Amelia closed her eyes, Oliver warm against her chest. Liam, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to us. How I pushed you away because being needed scared me more than any business deal ever has. And I'm trying to fix it, but I don't know if I'm already too late. The silence stretched between them, filled with everything they'd broken and everything they might still save. Come up, Amelia said finally. What? Come up. The door code is 4738. I'll buzz you in. Amelia, it's the middle of the night. I know what time it is. Come up anyway. She heard the car door open, his footsteps on the pavement. She buzzed him in when he reached the building, then waited, listening to his climb up the stairs. The elevator was still broken. When she opened the door, he looked wrecked. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it too many times. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." They stood there in the doorway, Oliver between them, creating a living bridge across the distance they'd built. "I made coffee," Amelia said, stepping back to let him in. "Decaf. Figured neither of us is sleeping anyway." Liam followed her inside, his movements careful, as if he were entering sacred space. She handed him Oliver while she poured 2 mugs, and he took their son with the same reverence he'd shown since the beginning. "He's getting bigger," Liam observed, settling onto the couch. 3 weeks old tomorrow." Amelia joined him, keeping a careful distance between them. "The pediatrician says he's gaining weight perfectly. You took him to the doctor without me." It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. "You were in that board meeting you just mentioned. I would have left. If you'd called, I would have left." Amelia sipped her coffee, studying him over the rim. "Would you have? Really? Or would you have promised to leave, then found a reason to stay until the meeting finished?" He flinched. "That's fair. A month ago, you'd be right. But I'm trying to be different. People don't change overnight, Liam. Especially not patterns they've spent their whole life building." "I know." He looked down at Oliver, who was fighting sleep with admirable determination. "That's what terrifies me. What if I can't change enough? What if I keep failing you both? What if you do?" Amelia asked and saw him wince. "What if this is as good as it gets? You trying your best and still falling short sometimes? What then?" "Then I try harder. I keep showing up. He stopped, seemed to gather himself. "I was going to say I don't give up, but I already did that, didn't I? When you left, when you were pregnant and needed me, I gave up without even trying." "Yes." She wouldn't give him false comfort. "You did. I can't undo that. I can't give you back those 8 months. Can't be there for the moments I missed. But I can be here now, and tomorrow, and every day after, if you'll let me." Amelia set down her coffee, pulling her knees up to her chest. "It's not about letting you, Liam. It's about whether I can survive it if you leave again, whether Oliver can." "I won't." "You can't promise that." She cut him off. "You can't promise you won't get pulled away by work, or scared by intimacy, or overwhelmed by what parenting actually requires. You can't promise that in 6 months or a year, you won't wake up and realize this life isn't what you want. You're right. I can't promise any of that." He shifted Oliver to his shoulder, the movement now natural instead of uncertain. "But I can promise that I'll fight for this, for us. That I won't run just because it's hard or scary. That's the difference between now and before. I understand what I'm fighting for." Amelia wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this version of Liam was real and permanent. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "The penthouse," she said abruptly. "You said I should move back there. Does the offer still stand?" Hope flashed across his face before he controlled it. "Yes, absolutely. I can have movers there tomorrow. I have conditions. Anything. You don't live there. Not yet. Maybe not ever." She held his gaze. "I need my own space. Somewhere I can close a door and know it's mine, not ours. And you don't get a key unless I give it to you." "Okay." He nodded immediately. "What else?" "You see your therapist twice a week, not once. And if I ask you to leave, you leave. No arguments, no negotiations. Done. And the divorce papers." She took a breath. "They stay unsigned for now, but they don't disappear. We're not married, Liam. We're 2 people trying to co-parent. That's all this is." She saw the hurt flash across his face, but he nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" She leaned forward. "Because I need you to understand that I'm not doing this for us. I'm doing it for Oliver. He deserves space and resources and the chance to know his father. But I'm still protecting myself. I'm still expecting you to fail." "I won't." He stopped himself. "I'll prove you wrong, however long it takes." Oliver chose that moment to let out a massive yawn, his tiny face scrunching adorably. They both laughed, the tension breaking slightly. "He's exhausted," Amelia said. "We all are. Let me put him down." Liam stood carefully, carrying Oliver toward the bedroom. Amelia followed, watching as he laid their son in the bassinet with practiced care, tucking the blanket just right, checking that everything was safe. When he turned back, they were standing close in the small bedroom, the intimacy of the space suddenly overwhelming. "I should go," Liam said quietly. "Let you rest." "Liam," she caught his arm as he moved past. "Why were you really sitting outside my building tonight?" He looked at her, and in the dim light from the hallway she could see everything he usually hid. Fear. longing, regret. Because this is where my family is, he said simply. And I spent 8 months pretending I could build a life without you. Turns out I can't. Every road leads me back here, to this tiny apartment, to you and Oliver. And I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I should sign those papers and let you move on. But I'm selfish enough to keep hoping you might forgive me. Amelia's breath caught. She should send him away, should maintain the wall she'd built. Instead, she found herself saying, I'm moving to the penthouse this weekend. Be there Saturday morning. Bring movers. I will, I promise. And Liam? She waited until he looked at her. Stop sleeping in your car outside my building. It's weird. He smiled, a real smile, not the corporate mask he usually wore. Deal. After he left, Amelia stood in the quiet apartment listening to Oliver's soft breathing and wondered what she'd just agreed to. Moving back to the penthouse meant crossing a line she'd sworn she'd never cross again. It meant letting Liam back into her life in a real way, beyond supervised visits and careful conversations. It meant risking everything she'd worked so hard to protect. But as she climbed back into bed, exhausted and uncertain, she realized that maybe protection wasn't what Oliver needed. Maybe he needed his mother to be brave enough to take risks, to model forgiveness and second chances and the messy work of healing. Or maybe she was just exhausted and making terrible decisions at 3 a.m. Time would tell. And Saturday was only 3 days away. Saturday arrived wrapped in uncertainty and cardboard boxes. Amelia stood in the middle of her apartment. Their apartment, the one she'd made into a home over 8 months of solitude, and felt the weight of what she was about to do. The movers Liam had hired moved efficiently around her, wrapping her second-hand furniture in protective padding, boxing up the life she'd built without him. Oliver slept in his carrier, oblivious to the upheaval happening around them. Ma'am? One of the movers, a burly man with kind eyes, approached carefully. We're about finished here. Is there anything else you want us to take? Amelia looked around at the bare walls, the empty spaces where her small collection of furniture had been. Just 3 weeks ago, she'd been prepared to raise Oliver in this cramped apartment, to make it work through sheer determination and stubbornness. Now she was voluntarily walking back into the life she'd escaped. That's everything, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The drive to the penthouse took 20 minutes through Saturday morning traffic. Amelia sat in the back of Liam's car. He'd insisted on driving them himself, watching the city change from her working-class neighborhood to the gleaming towers of downtown. Oliver stirred occasionally, making small sounds that reminded her this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about giving their son the best possible start, even if it meant swallowing her pride. You okay? Liam asked quietly, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. Ask me later. The penthouse building's garage felt familiar and foreign at once. How many times had she parked here, coming home from work or groceries or court, never imagining she'd leave and return as a completely different person? The elevator ride to the 42nd floor seemed to take forever and no time at all. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse, Liam's private elevator, one of the luxuries that had once impressed her, Amelia's breath caught. It was different. The minimalist bachelor aesthetic was gone, replaced by something softer, warmer. The leather furniture had been swapped for comfortable pieces in gentle grays and creams. Thick rugs covered the marble floors, and in the corner where Liam's home gym had been, there was now a fully equipped nursery. I hope this is okay, Liam said, hovering uncertainly as she stepped inside. I had designers come in, but I can change anything you don't like. The nursery furniture is all new, all the safety standards, and I had them set up the guest suite for you. It has its own bathroom, a small sitting room. You'll have complete privacy. Amelia walked slowly through the space, Oliver's carrier in her hand, taking it all in. The nursery was beautiful. Not ostentatious or overdone, but thoughtfully designed with soft colors and practical furniture. A rocking chair sat by the window, overlooking the city. Blackout curtains hung ready to create the darkness newborns needed. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, maybe. When did you do all this? She asked. After our conversation Tuesday night. I wanted you to know I was serious. He ran his hand through his hair, that nervous gesture she'd come to recognize. Is it too much? It's fine. She set Oliver's carrier down carefully. It's more than fine. It's just what? It reminds me of how you used to solve problems. Throw money at them until they look solved, even if nothing's actually changed underneath. She turned to face him. A fancy nursery doesn't fix what's broken between us, Liam. His face fell. I know that. I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness. I just wanted Oliver to have everything he needs. Wanted you to be comfortable. I know. She softened slightly. And I appreciate it. Really. She gestured helplessly. I'm scared. Being here again, it brings back everything. The good and the bad. Before Liam could respond, Oliver began to fuss. Amelia moved automatically to pick him up, but Liam was faster. I've got him, he said, lifting their son with practiced ease. You should explore. Get familiar with the space again. I'll handle this little guy. Amelia watched them for a moment, Liam swaying gently, murmuring soft words to Oliver, then forced herself to walk away, to check out the guest suite that would be her sanctuary. It was more than she'd expected. Not just a bedroom, but a full suite with a sitting area, a desk by the window, a bathroom with a soaking tub she'd definitely be using. Her clothes were already unpacked and hanging in the walk-in closet, her books arranged on the shelves. Everything she owned displayed as if she belonged here. She sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. A knock at the door made her look up. Liam stood in the doorway, Oliver now sleeping against his shoulder. Can I come in? She nodded, too tired to maintain the distance she knew she should keep. He sat carefully in the armchair by the window, arranging Oliver so he wouldn't wake. I know this is strange, being back here. I don't expect it to feel like home right away, or maybe ever, but I want you to know, this is your space, completely yours. I won't enter without permission, won't assume anything. Where are you staying? She asked. You said you'd stay elsewhere. Hotel for now. The Meridian down the street, room 2847. He shifted slightly. I can give you the room number in case you need me for anything, or if something happens with Oliver. The thoughtfulness of it, having a plan, being close but not imposing, caught her off guard. Okay, she said quietly. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound Oliver's gentle breathing and the distant hum of the city below. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. I used to sit in this window, Amelia said suddenly. When we first moved in together, before everything got complicated, I'd drink my coffee here and watch the city wake up and feel like I was part of something bigger. I remember, Liam's voice was soft. You'd be up before me, curled up right there with that ridiculous oversized mug Jenna gave you. The one that said nevertheless, she persisted. Amelia smiled despite herself. I broke it. The day I left, dropped it in the kitchen and it shattered. I know. I found the pieces. He paused. I kept them. In my office. I don't know why. Something about that admission, the broken pieces of their life together preserved in his pristine office, made Amelia's throat tight. Liam! Oliver chose that moment to wake with a cry that escalated quickly. Liam stood immediately, bouncing and soothing, but Oliver was having none of it, his face scrunched up, turning red with the force of his distress. He's hungry, Amelia said, recognizing the particular pitch. Here, But as she reached for Oliver, her foot caught on the edge of the rug. She stumbled, and Liam's free arm shot out to steady her. For a moment they were frozen, his hand on her waist, her hands gripping his forearm, Oliver crying between them. Their faces were inches apart. Amelia could see the flecks of gold in Liam's gray-green eyes, could smell the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with something new, baby spit up probably. His hand was warm through the thin fabric of her shirt, and she realized with a jolt that this was the closest they'd been in almost 9 months. Careful, he murmured, his voice rough. She pulled back quickly, taking Oliver from his arms. I'm fine, just clumsy. But her hands were shaking as she settled into the rocking chair to nurse, and she knew it wasn't from the near fall. It was from the realization that some part of her, the part she'd tried to lock away, still responded to his touch, still remembered what it felt like to be held by him. Liam seemed to sense her need for space. I should go. Let you settle in. Is there anything you need before I leave? No. We're fine. He lingered at the door. I'll come by tomorrow morning if that's okay. Bring breakfast. Liam. She stopped him before he could leave. This doesn't change anything. Me being here. It's for Oliver, not for us. I know. But the way he looked at her suggested he didn't quite believe it, or maybe just hoped it wasn't entirely true. After he left, Amelia sat in the quiet luxury of the penthouse and felt more alone than she had in her cramped apartment. At least there she'd known who she was, a single mother fighting to build a life. Here, surrounded by their shared past and uncertain future, she didn't know which version of herself she was supposed to be. Oliver finished nursing and looked up at her with unfocused eyes that were definitely Liam's. She carried him to the nursery, to the perfect crib in the perfect room, and laid him down on sheets that probably cost more than her entire apartment's rent. "Your daddy loves you," she whispered, stroking his soft cheek. "He's trying so hard to be good for you. I just don't know if that's enough." But as she stood there in the gathering dusk, watching her son sleep in the home his father had prepared for them, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, she wasn't ready for that, but maybe the beginning of something else. The possibility that people could change, that broken things could be repaired, even if the cracks still showed. She thought about Liam in his hotel room, close but not too close, giving her space while staying near enough to help. Thought about the nursery he'd created, the suite he'd prepared, the way he'd steadied her when she stumbled. Small gestures, consistent presence, the opposite of everything he'd been before. Maybe it was enough to build on, or maybe she was setting herself up for heartbreak again. The city lights began to twinkle below, and Amelia made herself a promise. She would take this one day at a time. She wouldn't assume the worst, but she wouldn't expect miracles either. She would protect her heart while leaving just enough space for the possibility of healing. It was the best she could do, and for now, it would have to be enough. The routine had developed slowly over the past 10 days. Liam would arrive each morning at 8, bearing coffee and breakfast. He'd spend the day helping with Oliver, learning to bathe him, mastering the swaddle, understanding the subtle differences between his various cries. Then he'd leave each evening, returning to his hotel room, leaving Amelia and Oliver in the penthouse that was supposed to be theirs but still felt like borrowed space. It was working, sort of, until Wednesday afternoon when everything fell apart. Amelia was in the nursery, folding tiny onesies while Oliver napped, when she heard Liam's phone ring in the living room. His tone changed immediately, sharp, focused, all business. The voice she remembered from their marriage, the one that could close billion-dollar deals before breakfast. "I understand the timeline," he was saying, "but I've made my position clear. I'm not available for travel right now." A pause. Amelia found herself moving closer to the door, listening despite knowing she shouldn't. "No, Jeffrey, you don't understand. My family comes first now. Find another solution." Another pause. Longer this time. "Then they can walk away. I won't be there to hold their hand through due diligence in Tokyo." Amelia's stomach tightened. Tokyo. She knew what that meant. Liam had been working on a major acquisition in Japan for over a year. Before she'd left, he'd talked about it obsessively, called it the deal that would define his legacy. "I don't care if it falls through." His voice was harder now. "I said no. Figure it out without me." He ended the call with more force than necessary. Amelia waited a moment before emerging from the nursery, giving him time to compose himself. When she entered the living room, he was standing by the window, his jaw tight, hands clenched at his sides. "Everything okay?" she asked carefully. He turned and she could see the effort it took him to smooth his expression. "Fine, just work." "The Tokyo deal." His eyes widened slightly. "You remember that? Hard to forget when it was all you talked about for months." She crossed her arms. "They want you to go. They need me to go. Apparently the investors are getting cold feet and only trust me to close it." He laughed bitterly. "Funny how indispensable you become when it's convenient for others. And you said no." "Of course I said no." He moved toward her, his expression earnest. "I told you I was staying, that I wouldn't let work pull me away." Amelia studied him, looking for cracks in his resolve. "This is a big deal. You said it yourself. Legacy defining. It's just money, Amelia. Just another acquisition in a string of acquisitions. It doesn't matter." "Doesn't it?" she challenged. "A month ago you would have been on a plane without a second thought. Now you're telling me none of it matters?" "Yes," he said it firmly, "because I finally understand what actually matters. And it's not in Tokyo. It's right here." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this time was different, but the nagging doubt that lived in her chest whispered warnings. "How long before you resent us?" she asked quietly. "How long before you start wondering what you gave up, what you could have built if you'd chosen differently? That's not going to happen. You can't know that." She moved to the couch, suddenly exhausted. "And what happens when Oliver's older and asks about your work, about what you did? Do you tell him you gave it all up because I didn't trust you to come back?" "I'm not giving anything up. I'm choosing what matters most." "It's not that simple, Liam. Life isn't about grand gestures and dramatic sacrifices. It's about balance, about finding ways to be present while still being yourself." He sat beside her, careful to maintain space between them. Then what do you want me to do? Because last week you were angry that I wasn't choosing you. Now you're angry that I am. I'm not angry. She wasn't entirely sure that was true. I'm just trying to understand if this is sustainable. If you can really walk away from everything you've built without eventually regretting it. Before Liam could respond, Oliver's cry cut through the tension. They both moved instinctively, but Amelia was faster, disappearing into the nursery. When she emerged with Oliver in her arms, she found Liam exactly where she'd left him, staring at his phone with an expression she couldn't quite read. Amelia, he said slowly, what if there was a way to do both, to be present here and still handle the Tokyo situation? Her stomach dropped. What are you suggesting? The investors need FaceTime, reassurance, but the actual negotiations could be handled remotely. He stood, pacing now, his business mind clearly working. What if I did a quick trip, 3 days maximum, showed my face, smoothed things over, then came right back? 3 days. She repeated it flatly. 4 maybe, with travel time. But I'd be on video calls with you every night. You and Oliver could even come with me if… No, the word came out sharp. Oliver's too young for international travel. And I'm not ready for… She gestured vaguely at the space between them. For whatever that would imply. Then I won't go. He said it immediately, definitively. I'll call Jeffrey back and tell him to find another way. And lose the deal you've spent a year building? Yes, if that's what it takes. Amelia looked down at Oliver, who was making soft sounds against her shoulder, completely unaware of the adult complications swirling around him. She thought about Liam in his hotel room every night, thought about the way he'd rearranged his entire life, thought about the man who used to disappear for weeks on business trips, now refusing to leave for even a few days. Go, she heard herself say. What? Go to Tokyo. Close your deal. She met his eyes. But if you can't come back when you say you will, if you let this turn into a week or 2 weeks or however long it takes to make it perfect, we're done. Not just the possibility of us, but co-parenting too. I'll move out and you can have scheduled visitation like any other divorced couple. Amelia, I'm serious, Liam. This is your test. Not from me, from yourself. Can you actually walk away from your empire when you promised you would? Can you choose us when choosing us is inconvenient and complicated and potentially costs you millions? He looked stricken. You're asking me to prove myself. I'm asking you to prove it to yourself. She shifted Oliver to her other shoulder. You keep saying you've changed, that you understand what matters now. But words are easy when you're not being tested. So go, close your legacy deal, and then we'll see if you come back. I'll come back. His voice was fierce. I'll close the deal in 2 days and be on the first flight home. Then there's nothing to worry about. But even as she said it, Amelia felt the fear creeping in. What if this was the excuse he'd been waiting for? The permission to slip back into his old life, to remember how much simpler everything was when emotions weren't involved. Liam crossed to her, stopping just short of touching. I will come back, but I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll still be here when I do. That you won't take Oliver and disappear while I'm gone. The fact that he had to ask hurt more than she wanted to admit. I won't run. Not this time. Okay. He stepped back. I'll book a flight for tomorrow. Be back by Sunday at the latest. Sunday, she repeated. 4 days. It felt like an eternity, and no time at all. That evening, after Liam left to pack and prepare, Amelia stood in the penthouse with Oliver and tried to convince herself she'd made the right decision. Sending him away was a test, yes, but it was also a risk. What if he didn't come back? What if the familiar pull of his empire proved stronger than his newfound commitment to family? She pulled out her phone, hesitated, then called Jenna. He's going to Tokyo, she said when her sister answered. And you're freaking out. I told him to go. Amelia paced the living room, Oliver asleep in his carrier. I practically dared him to choose his deal over us. Maybe because you need to know if he will, Jenna said gently. Maybe you need to see if he actually meant all those promises. What if he doesn't come back? Then you'll know, and you'll move forward without him, like you were already prepared to do. Jenna paused. But Mel, what if he does come back? What if he actually chooses you? That was the question that terrified her most. Because if Liam came back, if he proved that he'd really changed, then she'd have no more excuses to keep her heart protected. She'd have to actually try, actually risk everything on the possibility that love could survive their mistakes. The next morning, Liam arrived earlier than usual. He was already dressed for travel, suit, briefcase, the armor of his business world firmly in place. But when he held Oliver, when he pressed a gentle kiss to their son's forehead, the armor cracked. "I'll call tonight," he promised, "as soon as I land, and tomorrow, and every day until I'm back." "Just focus on your deal," Amelia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "That's why you're going." "No." He looked at her intently. "I'm going to prove to you, and to myself, that I can have both, that I can be successful without sacrificing what matters most. We'll see." He handed Oliver back to her, his fingers brushing hers in the transfer. The touch was electric, a reminder of everything they'd been and everything they might still become. "I'll see you Sunday," he said. "Sunday," she echoed. After he left, the penthouse felt cavernous. Amelia wandered through the rooms, Oliver against her chest, and tried to prepare herself for the possibility that Sunday would come and go without Liam's return, that she'd wake Monday morning still alone, still abandoned, still proof that people didn't really change. But she'd survived his absence before. She could survive it again. She just wasn't sure she wanted to. Thursday afternoon arrived with radio silence. Amelia checked her phone for the 100th time, watching the screen remain stubbornly blank. Liam had called Wednesday night as promised, his voice crackling through the international connection, exhaustion evident even through the distance. He'd told her about the flight, the hotel, the preliminary meeting, had asked about Oliver, about whether he'd been fussy, about every small detail of their day. But today, nothing. She tried to convince herself it meant nothing. He was busy with meetings, with negotiations, with the very reason he'd gone to Tokyo in the first place. But the silence felt deliberate, felt like a return to the old patterns she'd hoped were broken. Oliver fussed in her arms, picking up on her tension. She forced herself to breathe, to rock him gently, to sing the lullaby that usually soothed them both. "Your daddy's just busy," she whispered, not sure who she was trying to convince. "He'll call," he promised. The day stretched endlessly. She tried to distract herself, reorganizing the nursery that didn't need organizing, preparing bottles for feedings hours away, starting a load of laundry that consisted of exactly 3 onesies. The penthouse that had felt like a sanctuary now felt like a gilded cage, each luxury a reminder of what Liam could offer materially, but seemed unable to give emotionally. By evening, when Oliver had been fed and changed and was finally sleeping, Amelia found herself standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Liam was living his other life, the one that had always mattered more than she did. Her phone buzzed. She lunged for it, heart racing, but it was just Jenna. "Any word?" Amelia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could admit the truth, that she was terrified, that the silence felt like confirmation of all her worst fears. Or she could maintain the pretense that she was fine, that she'd expected this all along. "Not yet," she typed back. "But it's only been a day." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Want me to come over?" "No, we're fine." But they weren't fine. Amelia was unraveling, and Oliver seemed to sense it, waking every hour with cries that took longer to soothe each time. At 2 a.m., her phone finally rang. She grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it, Oliver's cries still echoing through the penthouse. "Liam? I'm so sorry." His voice sounded wrecked. "I meant to call hours ago, but the negotiations went sideways and I couldn't get away and my phone died and—" "It's fine." She cut him off, bouncing Oliver against her shoulder. "You're busy. I get it." "No, it's not fine. I promised I'd call and I didn't." He paused. "Is that Oliver crying? He's having a rough night. Because of me. Because you're stressed and he can feel it. Don't flatter yourself." The words came out sharper than intended. "Babies cry, Liam, it's what they do." Silence on the other end. She could hear background noise, voices, the ding of an elevator, the ambient sounds of a hotel lobby at night. "Where are you?" she asked, heading back to my room. "The meeting finally ended 20 minutes ago." He sounded exhausted. "Amelia, I know you don't believe me, but I tried to get away. Tried to call. But these investors, they're difficult and paranoid, and they needed constant reassurance. And I couldn't just walk out when millions of dollars were on the line. So the money won you after all. That's not fair, isn't it?" Oliver had quieted slightly, his cries reducing to whimpers. "You said you'd changed. That family came first. But the moment your empire needed you, you chose it. I didn't choose anything." Frustration crept into his voice. "I'm doing exactly what you told me to do. Closing this deal so I can come home. But you're acting like I've abandoned you when I've been gone less than 48 hours. You didn't call. My phone died in an 8-hour meeting that I couldn't leave. That's not the same as choosing work over you. Amelia sank onto the couch, Oliver finally settling against her chest. Liam was right, logically. She was being unfair, but the old wounds ran too deep, the old patterns too familiar. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Every hour you don't call, every moment of silence, I'm waiting for the message that says you need more time, that the deal is more complicated than expected, that you'll be home next week or the week after, or maybe never. Amelia, and the worst part is, I can't even be angry about it, because I told you to go. I practically pushed you onto that plane, so if you don't come back, it's my fault for testing you instead of just trusting you. Stop. His voice was firm but gentle. Stop torturing yourself with hypotheticals. I'm coming home Sunday. The deal will be closed by Saturday night and I'll be on the first flight out. Nothing is going to change that. You can't promise that. What if the negotiations fall through? What if they need more time? Then they'll have to wait until I get back to New York. Or find someone else. Or walk away entirely. She heard a door close on his end. He must have reached his room. I'm learning to set boundaries, Amelia. Learning that the world doesn't end if I'm not available 24/7. It's hard and uncomfortable and goes against every instinct I've spent 20 years developing. But I'm doing it. For us. Oliver made a small sound and Amelia adjusted him slightly. How's the deal actually going? Honestly, it's a disaster. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. They're asking for concessions I can't give, threatening to walk over issues that should have been resolved months ago. Part of me wonders if Jeffrey set this whole thing up to fail, to prove that I'm indispensable. Are you? Indispensable? No one is indispensable. The company will survive without me. Hell, it might even thrive. But my ego doesn't want to believe that. He paused. My therapist would say I'm tying my self-worth to my professional success, that I'm afraid if I'm not the irreplaceable CEO, I'm nothing. The vulnerability in his admission made Amelia's throat tight. You're not nothing. I'm Oliver's father. He stopped. I'm trying to be someone who matters for reasons beyond a balance sheet. But it's terrifying, Amelia, because I know how to close deals and manage companies. I have no idea how to be the man you both need. You start by coming home when you say you will. I will. I swear I will. Something shifted in his voice, became more urgent. But I need you to promise me something too. What? That you won't leave. That you won't pack up Oliver and disappear while I'm gone. That you'll give me the chance to prove myself. I already promised I wouldn't run. I know, but I need to hear it again. Because right now, thousands of miles away, unable to hold my son or see your face, I'm terrified that I'm going to come home to an empty penthouse and a note saying, you gave me my chance and I failed. Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his fear matching her own. They were both so scared, both waiting for the other to prove all their worst assumptions true. I'll be here Sunday, she said quietly. We both will. But Liam, if you're not on that plane, I will be. Even if I have to walk out of the meeting mid-sentence, even if it costs me everything, I'll be there. They stayed on the phone for another hour, talking about nothing and everything. He told her about Tokyo, about the bizarre investor dinner where they'd served fish he couldn't identify, about the hotel room that felt wrong without her and Oliver. She told him about Oliver's day, about the way he'd smiled, really smiled, for the first time that morning, about how she'd cried because Liam had missed it. Take a video next time, he said. I want to see everything, every moment, every milestone, even the 3 a.m. diaper explosions, especially those. She could hear the smile in his voice. I want it all, Amelia. The beautiful and the messy and everything in between. When they finally hung up, the sun was beginning to rise in Tokyo. Friday there. Still Thursday night in New York. Amelia carried Oliver to the nursery and laid him in his crib, watching him sleep with the peace only infants possessed. 2 more days. 48 hours until she'd know if Liam had really changed, or if this was all an elaborate performance that would end the moment the curtain fell. Friday passed in a blur of feedings and naps and anxious clock watching. Liam called twice, once in the morning to say good morning, once in the evening to update her on the negotiations. They were making progress, he said. Slowly, painfully, but progress nonetheless. I'll close this tomorrow, he promised. And then I'm coming home. Okay. You don't believe me. I want to. That's something, at least. Saturday morning, Amelia woke to a text. Meeting starts in an hour. This is it. By tonight, either the deal is done or dead. Either way, I'll be on a plane tomorrow. She stared at the message, trying to parse the meaning behind the words. Would he really walk away if the negotiations failed? Or would he extend his trip, trying to salvage what he could? The day crawled by. She tried to distract herself with Oliver, with cleaning, with anything that would stop her from checking her phone every 5 minutes. Jenna called around noon, offering to come over, but Amelia declined. She needed to sit with her anxiety, to face it alone. At 4 p.m. New York time, 5 a.m. Sunday in Tokyo, her phone rang. "It's done." Liam's voice was flat, exhausted. "The deal is closed. I'm heading to the airport now." "Congratulations." She tried to inject enthusiasm into her voice, but it came out hollow. "Amelia, I'm coming home. I kept my promise. I know, I'll see you tomorrow. Tonight, technically. I'll land around 8 p.m. your time. Tonight." He'd be home tonight, 12 hours earlier than promised. The realization should have brought relief. Instead, it brought a new wave of panic. What happened when he got home? What did it mean that he'd kept his word? Did it change anything? Or was this just one test passed in an endless series of trials? "I need to go," she said abruptly. Oliver's crying. He wasn't. But she needed off the phone, needed space to process. "Okay, I'll see you soon. He caught himself. "I'll see you soon." After hanging up, Amelia sat in the quiet penthouse and tried to prepare herself for his return. She should be happy, relieved, but all she felt was terrified. Because if Liam kept his promises, if he really had changed, then she had no more excuses to keep her heart locked away. She'd have to decide. Was she brave enough to try again? To risk everything on the possibility that this time might be different? Oliver stirred in his crib, and she went to him, lifting him into her arms. "Your daddy's coming home," she whispered, "and I have no idea what happens next." The hours until 8 p.m. stretched like taffy. She fed Oliver, bathed him, dressed him in a fresh onesie for reasons she couldn't quite articulate. She changed her own clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple sweater. Not trying too hard, not sending messages she wasn't ready to send. At 7:45, she heard the elevator. Her heart raced as she moved to the living room, Oliver in her arms. The doors opened and there was Liam, rumpled, exhausted, pulling a suitcase behind him. Their eyes met across the space. "I came back," he said simply. And despite everything, despite her fears and doubts and carefully constructed walls, Amelia felt something crack open in her chest. "You came back," she echoed. He dropped his suitcase, crossed the room in 3 long strides, and stopped just short of touching them. His eyes were red-rimmed, his suit wrinkled, his usual polish completely gone. "I told you I would." His voice was rough. "I told you I'd choose you, and I did." Amelia looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every exhausted line of his face. He had chosen them. For the first time in their relationship, when faced with the empire he'd built or the family he was trying to save, he'd chosen family. "I know," she whispered. And then, before she could second-guess herself, before fear could stop her, she stepped forward and let him wrap his arms around both of them. Liam held them like they were precious, like they were everything. His face buried in her hair, his body shaking slightly with what might have been tears. "I'm sorry," he murmured, "for everything, for every time I chose wrong, for every moment I made you feel like you weren't enough. You are enough. You're everything." Amelia closed her eyes, breathing in the familiar scent of him mixed with airport and exhaustion and determination. This didn't fix everything, didn't erase the hurt or guarantee the future, but it was a start. It was enough to hope. 3 weeks after Tokyo, Amelia woke to find Liam asleep on the couch. It had become a pattern. He'd stay late helping with Oliver, and rather than make the drive back to his hotel in the early morning hours, he'd crash wherever he landed. Sometimes the couch, sometimes the armchair by the nursery, once even on the floor beside Oliver's crib when their son had been particularly fussy. She stood in the doorway watching him sleep, his tie loosened, shirt wrinkled, one arm hanging off the couch in a way that would definitely cause pain when he woke. He looked younger in sleep, vulnerable in a way he never allowed when conscious. Oliver stirred in her arms, making the soft grunting sounds that preceded full wakefulness. Liam's eyes opened immediately, that new father instinct already ingrained. "Morning," he said, his voice rough. "What time is it?" 6:30. She moved to the kitchen to prepare a bottle, Liam following after a moment. "You didn't have to stay again." "I wanted to." He ran his hand through his hair, trying to tame it into something presentable. "Besides, Oliver had that weird cough last night. I wanted to make sure he was okay." The cough had been nothing. The pediatrician had confirmed it over a video call. But Liam's concern had been genuine, almost overwhelming. He'd spent 2 hours researching infant respiratory issues, had called his assistant to find the best pediatric pulmonologist in the city just in case, had barely slept worrying. It was sweet and terrifying, because every day he showed up, every night he stayed, every moment he proved he'd changed. Amelia felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling a little more. Coffee, she offered, the same ritual they'd developed over the past weeks. Please. They moved around the kitchen in a dance that had become familiar. She prepared Oliver's bottle while Liam started the coffee, their movements synchronized in a way that would have seemed impossible 2 months ago. Oliver watched them with alert eyes that were definitely Liam's, tracking their movements with infant focus. I need to talk to you about something, Liam said, as they settled at the kitchen table. Amelia's stomach tightened. Those words never led anywhere good. Okay. The board called an emergency meeting. Tomorrow. He wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. They're concerned about my continued absence, about the direction of the company. You've been working remotely. I have, but it's not the same as being there, and we both know it. He met her eyes. They're questioning my commitment. Some members are suggesting I step down as CEO. The words hung in the air between them. Amelia shifted Oliver to her shoulder, processing. What do you want to do? Honestly, I don't know. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. 6 months ago, the answer would have been obvious. I'd fight tooth and nail to keep my position, sacrifice whatever was necessary to maintain control. But now you have other priorities. Now I have the only priority that actually matters. He gestured between them, to Oliver. This, us, whatever we're building here. Amelia's heart raced. Liam, I can't be the reason you lose your company. Can't be the excuse for... You're not an excuse, you're a choice. He leaned forward, his expression intense. And I'm choosing you. Both of you. If the board wants me out, then I'm out. You don't mean that. I do. His voice was steady, certain. I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to balance everything, and I'm exhausted. Something has to give, and it's not going to be my family. Not again. Before Amelia could respond, Oliver began to fuss. She automatically began the bouncing motion that sometimes soothed him, but he was working himself up to a full cry. Let me. Liam took him, walking toward the nursery. I think he needs a change. Amelia sat alone at the table, her mind spinning. Liam was willing to give up his company, his empire, everything he'd spent 20 years building. For them, it should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like an impossible weight. She found them in the nursery 10 minutes later, Liam changing Oliver's diaper with practiced efficiency while singing, actually singing, some song about bears that she vaguely recognized from childhood. You sing to him, she said from the doorway. Liam looked up, slightly embarrassed. Seems to help. He likes the vibration or something. You're good at this. The admission came easier now. Being his father, you're really good at it. I'm trying. He finished securing the diaper, lifting Oliver to his shoulder. Every day I wake up terrified I'll mess it up, that I'll revert to the old patterns, the old priorities. But then I see him, see you, and I remember what I'm fighting for. Liam, I love you. The words rushed out, urgent and unplanned. I know I have no right to say it. No, I lost that privilege when I let you walk away. But I need you to know. I love you. I love our son. And I'm willing to give up everything else to prove it. Amelia's breath caught. She'd known it was coming, had felt it building in every lingering glance, every accidental touch, every moment of domestic intimacy. But hearing the words still shook her. You can't give up your company for me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm not giving it up for you, I'm giving it up for me. He moved closer, still holding Oliver. Because I finally understand that being CEO doesn't define me. Being a good father does. Being a good partner does. And I can't be those things while trying to run an empire. But what if you regret it? What if 6 months from now, a year from now, you wake up and resent us for what you lost? The only thing I regret is the time I wasted. The months I spent building something that doesn't matter instead of being here. Building this. He gestured around the nursery, but she knew he meant more than just the physical space. I regret every moment I chose work over you. Every night I stayed late at the office. Every time I made you feel like you weren't my priority. Tears were streaming down Amelia's face now. I'm scared. I know, so am I. He reached out with his free hand, cupping her face gently. But I'm more scared of losing you again. Of Oliver growing up without really knowing me. of spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been if I'd just been brave enough to choose love. Liam, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to forgive me or love me back or even trust me yet. I just needed you to know where I stand, what I'm willing to do. He paused, his thumb brushing away her tears. Tomorrow, I'm going to that board meeting, and I'm going to tell them that they can have the company or they can have me, but they can't have both. Not anymore. What if there's another way? The word surprised even her. What if you don't have to choose between everything? What if you can find a balance? Hope flickered in his expression. What are you saying? I'm saying, she took a shaky breath. I'm saying that I don't want you to sacrifice everything. I want you to be happy, fulfilled. And if the company is part of that, then we figure out how to make it work. The company isn't what makes me happy anymore. He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. You do. Oliver does. Coming home to this, being present for the small moments. That's what makes me happy. Amelia looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every line of his face. He meant it. This wasn't a grand gesture or a temporary phase. This was real change, painful and permanent. I'm still angry, she said quietly, at what you did, at the months you left me alone. I know, and I'm still scared that this is too good to be true, that you'll change your mind. I know that too. But, she took another breath, steadying herself. But I think I'm ready to try, really try, not just co-parenting but us. The hope in his expression bloomed into something brighter, more intense. Amelia, I'm not saying everything's fixed. We still have so much to work through, so much hurt to heal. But watching you these past weeks, seeing you show up every single day, keeping every promise, her voice cracked. I think I'm ready to believe you've changed, that we can have a second chance. Liam carefully transferred Oliver to the crib, then turned back to her with an expression that made her heart race. Can I? He hesitated. Can I hold you? Just hold you? She nodded, stepping into his embrace. His arms came around her, strong and careful and achingly familiar. She pressed her face against his chest, hearing the rapid beat of his heart, feeling the way his body trembled slightly with emotion. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you, he murmured into her hair, proving that you made the right choice. Just love us, she whispered back. That's all I need. Just show up and be present and love us. I can do that. He pulled back slightly to look at her face. I want to do that. For the rest of my life, if you'll let me. The divorce papers, she started. Throw them away. Burn them. I don't care. His hands cupped her face. I don't want a divorce, Amelia. I want my wife back. I want my family back. I want everything we almost lost. She searched his eyes, looking for any hint of doubt or reservation, found only certainty and love and the kind of determination that had built an empire, now redirected toward building a family. Okay, she said finally. Okay, okay? He repeated it like he couldn't quite believe it. I want to try. To be a family. Really be a family. She smiled through her tears. But you're still going to that hotel tonight. We're taking this slow. He laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. I'll go as slow as you need. I'll wait as long as it takes. And the board meeting tomorrow, I'll handle it. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. Can I kiss you? Amelia's breath caught. It had been so long, almost a year since they'd been this close, this intimate. She nodded, unable to form words. The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. It tasted of coffee and tears and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, both were crying. I love you, he said again. I never stopped, even when I was too scared and stupid to show it. I love you too. The admission felt like freedom and terror all at once. God help me, I never stopped either. Oliver chose that moment to cry, breaking the spell. They both laughed, turning toward the crib where their son was demanding attention. He has perfect timing, Liam said, lifting Oliver carefully. He's your son, Amelia replied, but there was no bitterness in it now, just acceptance and maybe even joy. They stood there in the nursery, the three of them together, and for the first time in months, Amelia felt like they might actually make it, like the broken pieces of their family might be coming back together, not perfectly but stronger for having been shattered and rebuilt. What happens now? She asked. Now? Liam looked at her, then at Oliver, then back at her. Now we take it one day at a time, one moment at a time, and we choose each other. Every single day, she echoed. And as the morning light streamed through the nursery windows, painting everything in shades of gold, Amelia let herself believe in second chances, in love that survived mistakes, in families that could break and heal and become something new. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks and challenges and moments of doubt. But standing there with Liam and Oliver, feeling the weight of his arms around them both, she thought maybe, just maybe, they had something worth fighting for after all. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, uncertain didn't feel like a threat. It felt like possibility. 6 months later, the sound of Oliver's laughter filled the penthouse, a bright, bubbling noise that still had the power to stop Liam mid-sentence during conference calls. At 7 months old, their son had discovered the joy of peekaboo, and Amelia was currently hiding behind her hands for the 15th time, each reveal greeted with delighted squeals. Liam stood in the doorway of his home office. Not the cold, sterile space it had been before, but a room that now had family photos on the desk, and Oliver's artwork, really just colorful handprints, framed on the wall. He'd been on a video call with the Tokyo investors, finalizing details of a new partnership structure that allowed him to work mostly from home. The board meeting 6 months ago had been brutal. He'd walked in prepared to resign, to choose family over empire. Instead, he'd proposed a radical restructuring, stepping down as CEO but remaining as chairman, working reduced hours with clearly defined boundaries. Half the board had threatened to walk. The other half had been intrigued. In the end, the company had survived, thrived even. The new CEO brought fresh energy, and Liam discovered that letting go of control didn't mean losing everything. It meant gaining something far more valuable. "Dada!" Oliver's new favorite word rang out, and Liam's heart swelled the way it did every single time. He crossed the room, scooping up his son and spinning him gently. Oliver giggled, grabbing Liam's nose with sticky fingers. "Someone had sweet potatoes for lunch," Liam observed, looking at Amelia with a smile. "Someone decided to wear his sweet potatoes," she corrected, gesturing at the orange stains on Oliver's bib, and his hair, and somehow, the wall. "He's an artist. He needs creative freedom. He needs a bath." But she was smiling, that soft smile that Liam had fought so hard to earn back. The past 6 months hadn't been perfect. There had been arguments about his work schedule, about parenting styles, about the lingering hurt that couldn't be erased overnight. There had been therapy sessions, both individual and couples, where they'd excavated all the buried pain and learned to communicate without defense mechanisms. There had been setbacks, a business trip to Chicago that went 2 days over schedule, sending Amelia into a spiral of panic that took weeks to resolve. A moment when Oliver's fever spiked, and they'd both fallen apart, old patterns threatening to resurface. But there had been healing, too, slowly, painfully, beautifully. 3 months ago, Liam had moved back into the penthouse, not into Amelia's suite. They were still taking things slow, still rebuilding trust brick by brick, but into the second bedroom close enough to help with midnight feedings, close enough to be present. 2 months ago, they'd gone on their first date since Oliver's birth. Dinner at a quiet restaurant, both of them nervous as teenagers, talking about everything and nothing until closing time. 1 month ago, Amelia had fallen asleep on the couch next to him, her head on his shoulder, and he'd carried her to bed and tucked her in, feeling more contentment than he'd ever felt closing a billion-dollar deal. Last week, she'd asked him to stay, not in the guest room but with her, and they'd spent the night talking, holding each other, rediscovering the intimacy they'd lost. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. "Bath time," Amelia announced, reaching for Oliver. "Come on, little man, let's get you clean before Daddy's dinner gets here." "I can do it," Liam offered. "You've been with him all day. We'll do it together." She said it easily now, that word that had once been so fraught. Together. The bath was chaotic. Oliver had discovered splashing, and by the time they emerged, both Liam and Amelia were nearly as wet as their son. But Oliver was clean and happy, dressed in pajamas with little bears that matched the song Liam still sang to him every night. "Did you close the Tokyo deal?" Amelia asked as they settled Oliver in his high chair with some toys while they waited for dinner. "Almost. They want one more revision to the partnership agreement." He sat beside her at the kitchen table. "I'll handle it tomorrow. It's not urgent." 6 months ago, everything had been urgent. Now he'd learned the difference between important and immediate, between crisis and inconvenience. "Your sister called," he said. "Wants to know if we're coming to her 4th of July barbecue." "Are we?" Amelia looked at him carefully. together? He understood the weight of the question. It would be their first public appearance as a couple. Not co-parents, not two people figuring things out, but as a family. Jenna's friends would ask questions. There would be speculation and judgment. "If you're ready," he said. I'd like to stop hiding what we're building here." Amelia was quiet for a moment, studying his face. Then she reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm ready." The doorbell rang. Dinner arriving. While Liam dealt with the delivery, Amelia's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, then looked up with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What is it?" "The partners at my firm. They want me back." She set the phone down. "Full-time, starting in September. They'll provide childcare support, flexible hours. It's a good offer." Liam's stomach tightened. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." She looked at Oliver, who was babbling happily to his toys. "Part of me misses the work, the challenges, but part of me can't imagine leaving him every day. Whatever you decide, I'll support it." He meant it. "If you want to go back to work, we'll make it work. If you want to stay home longer, we'll make that work too. We." She smiled slightly. "You say that a lot now, because it's true. We're a team." He set out the food. Thai from her favorite place, the one they used to order from when they were first married. "Whatever comes next, we figure it out together." They ate dinner with Oliver between them, taking turns entertaining him while they talked about Amelia's career, about Liam's restructured role at the company, about their plans for the future. It was domestic and ordinary, and absolutely perfect. After dinner, after Oliver was down for the night, they stood together in the nursery doorway watching their son sleep. "I have something for you," Liam said quietly. "Liam, if you bought me something expensive." "It's not expensive." "Well, not monetarily." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "I've been working on this for months." Amelia took the box carefully, opening it to reveal a simple silver bracelet. Engraved on the inside were 3 dates: their wedding day, Oliver's birthday, and today's date. "I don't understand," she said, looking up at him. "The day we got married, the day Oliver was born, and the day you let me love you again." His voice was soft. "The 3 most important days of my life." Her eyes filled with tears. "Liam, I know we can't erase the past, can't pretend those 8 months didn't happen, but we can choose to move forward, to build something new on the foundation of everything we've learned." He helped her put on the bracelet. "I want to renew our vows. Not now, whenever you're ready. Maybe on our anniversary, maybe when Oliver's older. But I want to stand in front of our family and friends and promise to love you, choose you, every single day for the rest of my life." Amelia was crying now, but smiling through the tears. "You're really determined to make me ugly cry, aren't you? You're beautiful when you cry." He wiped her tears gently. "You're beautiful always." She pulled him close, kissing him with all the love and hope and hard-won trust they'd built together. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "Yes," she whispered. "I want that too. A chance to start over, to make new promises we'll actually keep." "We'll keep them," he said firmly, "because we know what it costs to break them now." They stood there in the quiet penthouse holding each other while their son slept peacefully nearby, and Amelia felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Complete. Not because everything was perfect, but because they'd survived the imperfect and come out stronger. "I love you," she said, the words coming easier now. "I love you too." He kissed her forehead, every single day, for the rest of our lives. And as they walked hand in hand to the bedroom they now shared, ready to face whatever tomorrow brought, Amelia realized that second chances weren't about erasing the past. They were about learning from it, growing through it, and choosing to believe that love could survive even the worst mistakes. The divorce papers sat at the bottom of a drawer, forgotten and unimportant. They didn't need them anymore. Didn't need the legal end of something that had never really died, just gone dormant, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. Outside, the city lights twinkled like possibilities. Inside, their small family slept peacefully, wrapped in the kind of love that came not from perfection but from perseverance, from showing up day after day, choosing each other even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. This wasn't a fairy tale ending where all problems disappeared in a moment of recognition. This was real life, messy and complicated and absolutely beautiful in its imperfection. And it was more than enough. It was everything. What would you have done in Amelia's position? Would you have given him a second chance? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.